The common argument against why we can't do pharmacare, why we can't do dental care, it's jurisdiction, jurisdiction, jurisdiction. I think it's, in the words of Joe Biden, malarkey. But what would you say to folks that think that that's not something the federal government can do, or that's not something the federal government should even pursue, which is what we see online from partisans?
Well, that's malarkey, malarkey, malarkey. There's no doubt. We have universal health care. And how did we do it? Well, we put in place a framework that makes sure that it's universal, accessible, that there are conditions around how healthcare funds are dispersed. And then they had the federal government sit down with the provinces and negotiate agreements. And certainly with healthcare, if you look at the 1960s, there were some provinces that were reluctant initially, but when they saw how it worked and how Canadians support universal healthcare, I mean, there's no doubt that the support for our universal healthcare is massive, in 90% and more. And so even conservatives don't try to question it. Liberals don't try to question it because the popular support for universal healthcare is so solid. It would be the same evolution in pharmacare. We put in place the legal structure. That's the intent of C213. The second step is the negotiation of the formulary and the financial arrangements with the provinces. And it is possible that some provinces won't go in initially. But again, given the massive support, well over 80% by Canadians, there'll be pressure on all provinces eventually to be part of that. It takes leadership from the federal government. And that's what we have failed to see for 30 years, while Liberals have been promising it at each election, saying, oh yeah, we're really interested in pharmacare. We're going to do pharmacare. And then nothing happens afterwards. And this is the first time we've had symbolic votes. We've had opposition day votes, which are all important. But this is the first time Liberal MPs have been asked to vote on legislation that actually puts in place that first step for pharmacare. And so that's why it's so important to put pressure on them, because ultimately they seem to be wanting to push for an election in the spring. We'll see how that pans out, given the tragic debacle around vaccines. But if they go to the public and they voted no to the pharmacare, the Canada Pharmacare Act, I think it'd be very difficult for Liberal MPs to then promise for the dozen or 13th time that they want to bring in pharmacare when their vote shows something quite opposite. And that's why the public pressure, the pressure that all your viewers and people who are listening in can put on their local member of parliament makes a difference, because what it shows is, number one, that this bill's coming forward. Number two, that the date that it's being voted on. And number three, you're saying to that MP, you can't get around this. You have to vote yes if you're representing my interests. And that's what I love about having a strategy that is inside, outside. We've got lots of activist groups outside Parliament, coordinating with the NDP caucus inside Parliament, so that there's no escaping this decision that is made on February 24th, and the consequences if Liberal MPs particularly violate their public trust and their promises from the last umpteen election campaigns by voting against the Canada Pharmacare Act.